My name is Clara Mitchell, and I'm 28 years old. I never imagined the day my sister's engagement ring would slice my face open, not metaphorically, but literally. The sharp edge of the diamond tore my cheek as she slapped me across the boutique floor, the sound echoing off the marble walls and silencing everyone around us. That slap wasn't just an act of rage. It was the final punctuation mark in a story of years of emotional manipulation, family favoritism, and financial exploitation. For months, I had been nothing but a walking, talking ATM for her $100,000 wedding. The $12,000 designer gown she had just chosen? Charged to my platinum card. The lavish engagement dinner, the imported champagne, the venue deposit, all mine. But it wasn't until that slap that something inside me finally broke. That sting across my skin woke up every part of me that had been silenced by guilt and obligation. Before I take you into what happened next, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button if you've ever had to find the strength to say enough to the people you love. Because my breaking point was about to become my greatest transformation. Growing up in Newton, just outside Boston, my sister Samantha and I had once been inseparable. We were only 2 years apart. She was 30 now, and back then, she was my whole world. We built snow forts in winter that became our imaginary kingdoms. We defended each other fiercely against bullies. We traded secrets late into the night, whispering about crushes and dreams under shared blankets. Our childhood photos are still lined up on the hallway wall of our mother's house. 2 little girls with gap-toothed grins and messy pigtails. In every photo, Sam's arm is protectively draped around me. I used to look at those pictures and believe that love like that lasted forever. But that was before life taught me that family loyalty can sometimes be the sharpest weapon. Our family dynamic was obvious even as kids. My father, Richard Mitchell, was a high-powered corporate lawyer. The type who wore suits even on weekends and thought affection could be replaced with money. He worked long hours, missed birthdays, and when he was home, he was buried behind a newspaper or locked away in his office. My mother, Elaine, was obsessed with appearances and social standing. She believed life was a stage, and her daughters were props to impress her social circle. From early on, it was clear that Samantha was her favorite. While Mom dismissed my good grades as bookish, she praised Sam's popularity like it was a divine gift. "Clara's smart," she would say with a polite smile when introducing us to guests, "but Samantha has charisma. People just love her." I used to pretend it didn't hurt, but it did. So I threw myself into the one thing no one could take from me, my independence. I studied hard, earned scholarships, and eventually made it into Northwestern University to study finance. Samantha, on the other hand, attended Boston College, where she majored in communications, though in reality she majored in parties, fashion, and networking. After graduation, our paths couldn't have been more different. I landed a position as a junior analyst at a finance firm in Chicago, working long hours and saving every dollar I could. Meanwhile, Sam slipped effortlessly into a PR role for a luxury brand back home, surrounding herself with socialites and influencers. Her Instagram feed became a curated exhibit of champagne glasses, private jets, and sunlit photo shoots. Our mother adored it. "Look at your sister," she would gush during our weekly calls. "She's living, you should take notes." I'd smile, pretending I wasn't silently calculating how much her living cost and who was paying for it. Then came that fateful December visit. I flew home for Christmas, already dreading the comparison games that awaited me. My boring job, my practical wardrobe, my lack of a social life. But nothing could have prepared me for what my mother had orchestrated. The dining table was set like something out of a magazine. Candles, flowers, fine china, even a professional photographer lurking discreetly in the corner. "Why is there a photographer?" I whispered to my father. He adjusted his tie uncomfortably. "Your mother wanted something special," he muttered. And then Sam arrived. She floated into the room in a champagne-colored dress, hand in hand with a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a designer ad. Ethan Carter. Tall, self-assured, the kind of man who knew exactly how good-looking he was. He was charming, yes, but in that polished, overly rehearsed way that made me instantly uneasy. As dinner began, my mother directed every question toward Ethan, his job, his investments, his family. He mentioned working in finance, though when I asked about his firm, his answers were vague. When dessert arrived, Ethan stood, knelt beside Sam, and pulled out a velvet ring box. "Samantha Jane Mitchell," he said, loud enough for the photographer to capture the moment. "You've brought light into my life. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Gasps filled the room. My mother clapped dramatically. My father forced a smile. Sam squealed, tears glistening as she said yes, flashing the enormous diamond to every camera in sight. The flash reflected off the ring, the same ring that would one day slice my cheek. Later that night, Sam came into my room like she used to when we were kids, her cheeks glowing with excitement. "Clara, I want you to be my maid of honor," she said, gripping my hands. "You're my sister and no one else could ever do it justice." For a moment, it felt like we were little girls again, whispering under the covers. I hugged her tightly, fighting back tears. "Of course," I said. I'd be honored. If I had known what that promise would cost me, I might have slammed the door instead. The very next morning, Mom called a planning meeting. We sat at the dining table surrounded by wedding magazines and Pinterest printouts. "Let's talk budget," I said, pulling out a spreadsheet I'd made on my laptop. $30,000 should cover a really elegant wedding. Venue, food, dress, everything. Mom laughed so hard she nearly spilled her coffee. "Oh, darling, that's adorable," she said. $30,000 might cover the flowers. This is going to be the event of the year." Sam nodded eagerly. "Ethan's parents are very particular. We can't have something ordinary." I frowned. "Are they contributing financially?" There was a pause. Then Sam said, "Well, Ethan's had some cash flow issues. His last investment is tied up, but it's just temporary. He'll have access to it soon." Mom leaned forward, her tone suddenly soft. "Clara, sweetheart, you're so successful. Couldn't you help a little just until things even out?" I hesitated. "How much is a little?" Sam reached across the table and took my hand. "Just until the deposits are paid. I'll pay you back once Ethan's funds clear, I swear." Her eyes shimmered with sincerity. And like a fool, I believed her. That night, I added her as an authorized user on my Platinum card. I even drafted a short written agreement outlining repayment terms. She laughed when I handed it to her, but she signed it anyway. At the time, I thought I was rebuilding the bond we'd lost. But what I was really doing was handing her a loaded weapon, one that she would aim straight at me. The first few weeks of wedding planning went smoothly, or at least I convinced myself they did. Every time Samantha texted me about a new vendor, it came with the same cheerful tone she'd used when we were kids planning pretend tea parties. "Val, you'll love this florist. Their arrangements are pure art." Or, "Val, the band I found is incredible. They even played at a Kennedy cousin's wedding." But underneath the charm, the invoices piled up. Each time, she promised, "Ethan's funds will clear any day now." And each time, the total on my credit card grew higher. The first red flag came in the form of a text from my bank. "Unusual activity detected on your account." At first, I assumed it was a mistake. But when I opened the notification, my jaw dropped. There were thousands of dollars in new charges, designer invitations, couture bridesmaid robes, imported floral samples from France. When I called Sam, she sounded genuinely confused. "What do you mean? Those were all essential wedding expenses. Don't worry, I'll handle it soon." "Essential?" I asked, trying to stay calm. $5,000 on napkin monograms isn't essential." She laughed lightly, as if I were joking. "You sound just like Dad, always so practical. Relax, it's going to be the wedding of the year." That was her favorite phrase, the wedding of the year. She said it like it was a birthright. By February, the total had hit $60,000. I'd started making only the minimum payments just to keep up. Still, part of me refused to believe Sam would really take advantage of me. This was my sister. We'd shared everything growing up, bunk beds, birthday cakes, heartbreaks. She couldn't possibly mean to destroy me financially. Then came the Cape Haven resort decision. Originally, the wedding was supposed to be at a lovely country club just outside Boston. It was elegant, classic, and comfortably within budget, or what little budget we'd discussed. Then one afternoon, Sam called me squealing. "You have to see this resort, Clara. It's stunning. Ocean views, marble ballroom, private beach. It's perfect." "Perfectly expensive, maybe," I muttered. "How much?" She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Only $50,000 for the minimum package." I nearly dropped the phone. $50,000? That's more than the entire wedding we agreed on. "I know, but it's worth it," she said quickly. "This isn't just any wedding. It's my one chance to show people who I've become. And think about the photos. You'll love it once you see it. I wanted to argue, but I could already hear Mom's voice in the background. Don't be negative, Clara. It's your sister's big day. It was always her big day. Her big week, her big life. Mine was simply the supporting act. I finally agreed to a compromise. I'd cover the deposit, but no more charges would go through without my approval. Sam agreed instantly. Of course, you're the best sister ever. 2 weeks later, another $9,000 charge appeared, the remaining deposit for the resort. When I confronted her, she said, "Oh, I thought the initial payment was just a partial hold. They needed the rest to secure the date." Don't be mad, Clara. It's all under control. Under control. I was drowning, and she called it control. The months blurred together after that. Every vendor seemed to have my number on speed dial. The caterer, the lighting company, the florist, the custom invitation designer. Each one confirmed that I was the one responsible for payments and that Miss Samantha said you'd be handling it all. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was the humiliation, the realization that everyone thought I was her financial backer, not her sister. By early summer, I decided to fly back home and talk to her face to face. I needed clarity, or closure. I booked a last-minute flight to Boston and arrived at her downtown apartment. It looked like something out of a luxury magazine. Velvet couches, marble counters, fresh flowers everywhere. And the faint scent of expensive candles filled the air. "Wow," I said as she opened the door. "This place looks nice." She smiled, oblivious to the sarcasm. "Ethan's parents helped us furnish it. You know how they are, taste and class in everything." I sat on the couch and got straight to the point. "Sam, I need to see proof that you and Ethan can repay what you owe. I've been patient, but this can't go on." Her expression hardened. "Why are you being so dramatic? It's just money. You make plenty." "It's not just money. It's my life savings." "Oh, stop," she said, rolling her eyes. "You act like I'm some kind of scam artist. You're my sister. Families help each other." "Help is one thing," I snapped. "Being exploited is another." Her eyes narrowed. "You're always so ungrateful, Clara. I'm including you in the biggest event of my life, and you make it about you." That's when I knew. She didn't see me as a sister anymore. She saw me as a resource. I left without another word. A week later, the boutique fitting happened. The day that changed everything. The dress shop was a glamorous chaos of silk and tulle, gold mirrors and champagne flutes. The staff buzzed around Sam like bees around a queen. My mother sat on a velvet chair, beaming as if the entire event were hers. When I walked in, wearing a simple navy dress, the room quieted for a moment. "You're late," my mother said curtly. "I'm right on time," I replied. Samantha turned, her face glowing under the boutique lights. "Clara, finally, we've been waiting. Look at this dress." She stepped onto the platform, spinning slowly. The gown was breathtaking. Delicate lace, hand-beaded bodice, cascading silk layers that shimmered as she moved. I couldn't deny it. She looked stunning. But the price tag, $10,000, made my stomach twist. As the stylist adjusted the hem, I cleared my throat. "It's beautiful, Sam, but maybe we should find something more practical?" Her smile vanished. "Practical?" "You already owe me more than $80,000, I said softly, hoping she'd pull me aside to talk privately. Instead, she froze, then turned to the entire room. "Did you hear that?" she said with a bitter laugh. "My own sister thinks I should wear something cheap to my wedding." The air grew heavy. The bridesmaids exchanged awkward glances. "Sam, please, I didn't mean—" The slap came so fast I barely saw it coming. Her diamond ring caught my cheek, the cut so sharp it burned. The sound echoed through the boutique. Gasps followed. Even the stylist stepped back. "Don't you ever embarrass me again," Samantha hissed. Blood trickled down my face, mixing with tears I hadn't realized were falling. I turned and walked out, past the shocked stares, past the clicking heels and whispers. I didn't even stop when my mother shouted after me. I drove to my hotel room, shaking uncontrollably. I pressed a tissue to my cheek, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The wound wasn't deep, but the humiliation was. That was the night I decided I was done. No more paying, no more excuses, no more pretending that blood meant loyalty. For years, I had been the dependable sister, the one who fixed everything. But that night, I realized something simple and painful. When people know you'll always say yes, they stop respecting your no. So I started planning. While Samantha was posting pictures of bridal fittings and floral arrangements online, I began quietly gathering receipts, statements, and screenshots. Every text message where she promised repayment, every invoice billed to my name, I saved them all. I organized them by date and vendor, creating a digital record of her deception. Then I called my credit card company and reported unauthorized use. I had proof that the original agreement had been violated. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice. By the following week, I'd frozen her access to my accounts. The reaction was immediate. First came the frantic texts. "Clara, my card's not working. Did the bank mess something up? Call me now." Then the calls started, dozens in a row. I didn't answer. When she finally showed up at my apartment in Chicago, she looked furious. "You had no right to do that," she yelled, storming inside. "Vendors are calling me non-stop." "They should," I said coolly. "They've been charging my account without permission for months." She glared at me like I was the villain. "You've ruined everything. The wedding is in 2 months." "No, Sam. You ruined everything the moment you decided my hard work was your personal bank account." Her eyes filled with tears. But this time, I didn't buy it. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I just wanted to make Mom proud." I shook my head. "Then you should have done it with honesty, not theft." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That was the last time we spoke, until the morning the police came knocking. The morning after Samantha stormed out, I woke to a heavy, echoing knock at my apartment door. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe it was just maintenance or a package. But the pounding came again, harder this time. "Police, open the door, ma'am." For a split second, my heart stopped. I wasn't sure what scared me more, the word police or the thought that somehow my sister had already done something worse. I opened the door slowly. 2 officers stood there, one tall and broad-shouldered, the other younger, holding a clipboard. The older one spoke first. "Miss Clara Mitchell?" "Yes," I said, gripping the edge of the door. "I'm Officer Ramirez. This is Officer Kent. We're here regarding several financial transactions connected to your accounts. We'd like to ask you a few questions." I felt my stomach twist. "Of course. Come in." As they entered, I glanced toward my small kitchen table, still covered in the stacks of receipts and printed emails I had gathered as evidence. The younger officer nodded toward the papers. "Looks like you've been doing some accounting of your own." I tried to smile. "Something like that." Officer Ramirez pulled out a small notebook. "We received a report last night from an individual named Samantha Carter. She's claiming you fraudulently opened a credit card in her name and made unauthorized charges exceeding $90,000. For a second, the room spun. She, what?" He glanced up from his notes. "You deny that claim?" "I absolutely deny it," I said, heat rising to my cheeks. "She's lying. She's the one who used my account, not the other way around." The officers exchanged a quick look. Ramirez gestured toward the paperwork on my table. "Mind walking us through this?" So I did. I told them everything, from the moment Sam asked me to be her maid of honor, to adding her as an authorized user, to every unapproved charge that followed. I handed them the signed agreement I'd kept, where she'd promised to repay me once her fiancé's investments cleared. I showed them screenshots of our text messages, the constant excuses, the fake promises, the emotional manipulation. When I finished, Officer Ramirez exhaled slowly. "That's quite a story." The younger officer nodded. "And you have documentation for all of this?" "Every last charge," I said firmly. "You can call the vendors if you want. Every single one of them was told to bill me directly because Samantha said I'd handle all the finances." The officers spent nearly an hour reviewing everything. By the end, their tone had shifted completely. "Miss Mitchell," Ramirez said finally, closing his notebook, "based on what you've shown us, it looks like your sister's report was an attempt to deflect responsibility. We'll file an amended report immediately and forward your evidence to the Financial Crimes Division." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "So, she's not going to get away with this?" He shook his head. "Not likely. What she did, using your card beyond agreed consent and then filing a false police report. That's fraud and defamation. She'll have some explaining to do. When they left, I sank onto the couch, my hands trembling. Relief flooded through me, but so did heartbreak. Because no matter what the law said, I had still lost something deeper than money. That afternoon, I got a call from my mother. "Clara, what have you done?" Her voice was cold, sharp, and accusatory. "I could ask Sam the same question," I replied. "She told me everything," Mom continued, ignoring me. "You're trying to ruin her wedding out of jealousy. You had her credit frozen. The vendors are calling nonstop. You've humiliated her." "Mom, she stole nearly $100,000 from me," I said through gritted teeth. "She filed a false police report." "She's your sister," my mother snapped. "Family doesn't do this to each other." "Exactly," I said quietly. "Family doesn't steal from each other either." There was a long silence. Then she said something that hit harder than any slap. "You've always been the selfish one, Clara. Always. I should have known you'd find a way to make this all about you." And then she hung up. That was the moment I realized my family wasn't broken. It had been built that way all along. 2 days later, I received an email from Officer Ramirez. They had confronted Samantha about the false report. She'd cracked almost immediately, admitting that she'd made the accusation out of panic. The wedding vendors had started threatening legal action for unpaid balances, and she'd thought blaming me would buy her some time. Her case was now under review for credit card fraud, false reporting, and misuse of funds, but karma wasn't done yet. The story spread, first among the vendors, then through her social circles. The Boston Wedding of the Year became the city's biggest scandal. Vendors began withdrawing their services. The venue canceled the reservation after unpaid deposits bounced. The florist posted a warning in a local business forum. "Beware of clients who don't pay their bills. Samantha Carter owes us over $10,000. By the end of that week, the wedding had officially collapsed. Ethan's parents, upon learning what she had done, called off their support entirely. The engagement was quietly postponed, though word eventually got out that Ethan had ended it completely after discovering Samantha's lies about her finances. It turned out he wasn't exactly innocent either. He'd been inflating his own wealth to impress her family, living off credit and appearances just like she was. They were a perfect match, in deceit at least. When the dust settled, my sister's once perfect life crumbled. Her job in luxury PR, gone. Her reputation, ruined. Her Instagram account, once full of champagne and designer shoes, was deleted within weeks. Meanwhile, I was still dealing with the mess she'd left behind. The banks eventually refunded part of the fraudulent charges, but not without endless paperwork and months of anxiety. I started therapy, not just for the financial trauma, but for the emotional toll of realizing the people I trusted most had betrayed me. Then, one gray morning in October, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from Samantha. The handwriting was familiar, but shaky. "Clara, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I thought if I made the wedding big enough, if I impressed everyone, maybe Mom would finally see me as worth something. I didn't realize how far I'd gone until it was too late. I lost Ethan, I lost my job, I lost everything. You were right about everything. I don't deserve your help, but I hope someday you'll understand I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just didn't know how to stop." I read the letter twice. Then I folded it neatly and put it in a drawer. Because forgiveness isn't always about letting someone back into your life. Sometimes it's just about closing the chapter. Months later, as the holidays rolled around again, my phone lit up with a text from my father. "I heard what happened. I'm proud of you for standing your ground. Come home for Christmas. Just you." For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the backup plan or the family wallet. I was just Clara, and that was enough. That Christmas, I walked into my parents' house with a quiet confidence I'd never felt before. My mother's polite smile faltered when she saw me, but my father hugged me tightly, a gesture so unexpected it almost made me cry. "Don't worry about your sister," he whispered. "Some lessons take longer to learn." As I looked around the living room, the same one where I'd watched my sister get everything she wanted growing up, I realized something profound. I wasn't angry anymore. Not because she deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved freedom. The wound on my cheek had long since healed, but it left behind a faint scar, one that caught the light in certain angles. Sometimes when I looked in the mirror, I touched it gently, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof of survival. That scar told a story, not of a wedding, but of awakening. Of the moment I learned that loyalty without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction. And now, every time I see that tiny mark, I smile, because it's proof that I finally learned to choose myself. A year passed, seasons changed, and so did I. For the first few months after the collapse of the wedding, I threw myself into work. The same precision and discipline that once made me a financial analyst now became tools for rebuilding my life. I started investing strategically, not in people who drained me, but in myself. I moved into a beautiful loft in downtown Chicago, light pouring in through the tall windows each morning like quiet forgiveness. There were nights when I couldn't sleep, when the memory of my sister's slap and my mother's words replayed like an echo I couldn't silence. But over time, the pain began to dull, replaced by something unexpected: clarity. I realized that for most of my life, I'd mistaken approval for love. I'd spent years trying to prove my worth to people who only valued me for what I could provide. My sister's betrayal didn't create that pattern. It exposed it. I started therapy again, not out of weakness, but out of strength. I wanted to understand why I had allowed myself to be used for so long. My therapist, a calm woman with silver hair and kind eyes, once said something that stuck with me. You can forgive someone and still never speak to them again. Forgiveness is peace, not permission. That became my mantra. Months later, I got a call from one of the detectives handling Samantha's case. Her charges had been formally processed. She'd accepted a plea deal for financial misconduct, community service, and restitution payments. The officer mentioned something else. She had attended mandatory counseling for financial accountability and family dynamics. She's trying to make amends, he said, his tone neutral. I thanked him and hung up, unsure how to feel. A few days later, a package arrived at my office. Inside was a small box with a note written in handwriting I recognized immediately. Clara, I found this while cleaning out Mom's house. I thought you should have it. Sam. Inside was an old Polaroid. The two of us as children, sitting on the front steps of our house, covered in dirt from making mud pies. We were laughing, carefree, untouched by pride or greed. On the back, she had written in faded pen, "Before everything got complicated." I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I placed it on my bookshelf next to the framed copy of my first business award, not as forgiveness, but as closure. In time, I built something new from the wreckage. Using the lessons I'd learned, I launched my own financial consulting firm, focused on helping women protect themselves from financial manipulation. Not just in relationships, but in families. Within a year, it grew rapidly, featured in local business magazines and podcasts. Reporters asked where the idea came from, and I always said the same thing. Because sometimes the people who drain you emotionally are the same ones who drain your accounts. I want to teach women to recognize both. It felt like poetic justice, turning the worst chapter of my life into something that protected others. One late afternoon, I walked along Lake Michigan, the cold wind brushing my face. I passed by a bridal photo shoot, a glowing bride twirling in her gown, her laughter echoing across the pier. For a moment, it reminded me of Samantha, not the woman who betrayed me, but the little girl who once built snow forts with me in our backyard, dreaming of magical castles and happy endings. Maybe somewhere, beneath all her lies and mistakes, that girl still existed. Maybe one day she'd find her own peace. But I no longer needed to be part of that journey. As I watched the sunset shimmer across the water, I whispered softly, "Goodbye, Sam." And for the first time in my life, I meant it without sadness. The past no longer defined me. I wasn't the sister who got slapped in a boutique, or the daughter blamed for standing up for herself. I was the woman who survived, rebuilt, and turned betrayal into purpose. That night, back at home, I opened my laptop and drafted a new blog post for my firm's website. It was titled, "When Family Crosses the Line, How to Protect Yourself Financially from Emotional Manipulation." I started writing, not as a victim, but as someone who had learned. The first line read, "It's not selfish to protect your peace, it's survival." And as I typed, I realized something beautiful. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was evolution.